الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة. قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بحول الله يقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها. قد أفلح من زكاها. قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. لا إله إلا الله العلي العظيم. سبحان الله رب السماوات السبع ورب الأرضين السبع وما فيهن وما بينهن ورب العرش العظيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين وسلام على المرسلين. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وتقبل شفاعته وارفع درجته بحول الله يقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. استغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. This is dua tasbih للإمام السجاد. It is narrated that when Imam al-Sajjad used to recite this tasbih dua, it used to be, or it is narrated that every stone and tree was doing tasbih with the Imam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. سبحانك اللهم وحنانيك سبحانك اللهم وتعاليت سبحانك اللهم والعز إزارك سبحانك اللهم والعظمة رداؤك سبحانك اللهم والكبرياء سلطانك سبحانك من عظيم ما عظمك سبحانك سبحت في الملأ الأعلى سبحانك أنت شاهد كل نجوى سبحانك موضع كل شكوى سبحانك حاضر كل ملأ سبحانك عظيم الرجاء سبحانك ترى ما في قعر الماء سبحانك تعلم وزن السماوات سبحانك تعلم وزن الأراضين سبحانك تعلم وزن الشمس والقمر سبحانك تعلم وزن الظلمة والنور سبحانك تعلم وزن الفيء والهواء سبحانك قدوس 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 سبحانك عجبا من عرفك كيف لا يخافك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. صلوات.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله سلام الله عليه. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. A reminder, my salah is qasr. الله أكبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. بحول الله أخوتي أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها يومئذ تحدث أخبارها بأن ربك أوحى لها يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا وجزهما بالإحسان إحسانا وبالسيئات غفرانا. ربنا اكشف عنا العذاب إنا مؤمنون. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب والأبصار ثبت قلبي على دينك. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. استغفر الله ربي.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي، وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تقطر على قلبي، فأجول في طلبه البلدان، فأنا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران، لا أدري في سهل هو أم في جبل، أم في أرض أم في سماء، أم في بر أم في بحر، وعلى يدي من قبل من، وقد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك، وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله، واجعل يا ربي رزقك لي واسعا، ومطلبه سهلا، وماخذه قريبا، ولا تونني بطلب ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا، فإنك غني عن عذابي، وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآله، وجد على عبدك بفضلك، إنك ذو فضل عظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا مولاي وسيدي يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا سيدتي ومولاتي يا سيدة نساء العالمين فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليكما يا سادتي وموالي سيدي شباب أهل الجنة الحسن والحسين. السلام على الذرية من أولاد الحسين المعصومين. السلام عليك يا مولاي صاحب الزمان. الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام على الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أنصار الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات نهدي ثواب سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات. بار دیگر صلوات. ایک دفعہ پھر صلوات. ایک نجف میں میرا علی ہے، ایک علی ایران میں ہے. ایک نجف میں میرا علی ہے، ایک علی ایران میں ہے. ہم پلہ دونوں کی سخاوت قدرت کے میزان میں ہے. ہم پلہ دونوں کی سخاوت قدرت کے میزان میں ہے. مولا رضا اور مہدی علی میں فرق یہی معمولی ہے. مولا رضا اور مہدی علی میں فرق یہی معمولی ہے. ایک قرآن کھلا رکھا ہے، ایک ابھی جزدان میں ہے. ایک نجف میں میرا علی ہے، ایک علی ایران میں ہے. پر محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. بار دیگر صلوات. الفاتحہ. عین سے عین عبادت کا سرانجام ہوا. عین سے عین عبادت کا سرانجام ہوا. لام وہ لام کے جس لام سے اسلام ہوا. لام وہ لام کے جس لام سے اسلام ہوا. یہ سے یاور ہوا مشکل میں ہر ایک بندے کی. یہ سے یاور ہوا مشکل میں ہر ایک بندے کی. صدقے اس نام کے کیا خوب علی نام ہوا. عین سے عین. پر محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. ایک دفعہ پھر سورہ صلوات بھیج دیجیے گا. بار دیگر صلوات. ایک دفعہ فاتحہ تمام بانیان مجلس کے مرحومین اور تمام وہ لوگ جو بے اولاد اس دنیا سے چلے گئے ان کے لیے. اور محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ تھا وہی عالم غربت میں رضا کا عالم، تھا وہی عالم غربت میں رضا کا عالم، کربلا میں جو شہ کرب و بلا کا عالم، وہی تسلیم وہی صبر و رضا کا عالم، وہی تسبیح وہی ذکر خدا کا عالم، وہی تسبیح وہی ذکر خدا کا عالم، نقش توحید کو اس طرح مٹا جائے، زہر اور ساقی کوثر کو پلایا جائے، زہر اور ساقی کوثر کو پلایا جائے، گو بہت دور وطن سے تھے حسین ابن علی، تھا نہ غم خار بھی اور ان کے دم میں آخر کوئی، رونے والے تو مگر ان کے تھے موجود کئی، سر کھلے ہی سہی مقتل میں بہن تھی تو سہی، سر کھلے ہی سہی مقتل میں بہن تھی تو سہی، تھا یکی غم میں میری جان کو کھوئے گی بہن، فاطمہ لاش پہ اور ناقے پہ روئے گی بہن، فاطمہ لاش پر اور ناقے پہ روئے گی بہن، کشتہ زہر زمانے میں حسن بھی تھے مگر، نازا میں زانوئے شبیر پہ تھا ان کا سر، بہن تسکین کو موجود تسلی کو پسر، اپنے سب اہل وطن اپنے عزیز اپنا گھر، اپنے سب اہل وطن اپنے عزیز اپنا گھر، یا وطن دور بہن ہے نہ کوئی بھائی ہے، نزا کا وقت ہے اور عالم تنہائی ہے، نزا کا وقت ہے اور عالم تنہائی ہے، ان خیالات غم انگیز میں پہ ہم جو گھرے، اشک آنکھوں سے بہے ریش مبارک پہ گرے، کوفہ و شام کے بازار نگاہوں میں پھرے، موت نے تھام لی تارگ جہاں کے سرے، موت نے تھام لیے تارگ جہاں کے سرے، چل بسے گلشن ہستی سے ہمارے مولا، शह को रोते हुए दुनिया से सिधारे मौला, शह को रोते हुए दुनिया से सिधारे मौला, था वही आलम गुर्बत में रिजा का आलम। पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद से पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु
ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم.
برائے خوشنودی امام زمانہ بلندتر صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيب قلوب العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا رسول الله، صلى الله وسلم عليك يا مولاي وسيدي يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة، ويا عبرة المؤمنين، غريب مظلوم عطشان شهيد كربلاء، صلى الله وسلم عليك يا مولاي وسيدي أيها الإمام الرؤوف، يا أنيس النفوس، يا شمس الشموس، أيها الغريب المدفون بأرض طوس. ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم، أمن من لجأ إليكم، يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. My heart aches, my heart aches, my heart aches for the one Allah named the content. Al-Imam Ar-Ridha was named Ar-Ridha by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My heart aches, my heart aches, my heart aches for the one Allah named the content. My soul cries, my soul cries, my soul cries blood for his poisoned body and his pain and his torment. The word of truth, the light in dark, Allah's justice on this earth He represents. So let us weep for He who died alone, and let us cry for Him and let us lament. قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قالت إن الملوك إذا دخلوا قرية أفسدوها وجعلوا أعزة أهلها أذلة وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَلِيُّ الْعَظِيمُ. Please bless in this gathering with a loud salawat. A second salawat for the love of our Mawla Al-Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam. A third salawat for the hastening of the reappearance of our Mawla Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Al-Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam, a man comes to him by the name of Ahmad al-Bizanti. He tells him, Yabna Rasulullah, those who oppose you, they claim that your father Ar-Ridha was named Ar-Ridha by Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi because he accepted to be his crown prince. Is this true? Al-Imam al-Jawad says, Wallah, they have lied and they have engaged in grand sin. For my father was named Ar-Ridha by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why, Ibn Rasulullah? He says, my father was accepted in the heavens, in the sama, as the Imam by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was accepted on this earth by the Prophet and all of the Imams as the Imam. So this man asks him, Ibn Rasulullah, was this attribute not shared by the rest of the Imams as well and yourself? He says, yes. He tells him, then why was it that your father out of all of them was named Ar-Ridha? He says, because my father, those who were against him and those who supported him alike, they accepted him. And this maqam was not shared by any other Imam before him. And therefore, he was named Ar-Ridha. And this is why Al-Imam Ar-Ridha was named Ar-Ridha by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This question by this man, Ahmad al-Bizanti, an aspect to it may permeate in the minds of many Shia. Why was it that Al-Imam Ar-Ridha accepted? Why did Al-Imam Ar-Ridha accept to be the crown prince of Al-Ma'mun? And to answer this question, we have to take a look at the background of the time, the political atmosphere, the situation the Imam was in. And obviously, one of the quickest questions that comes to mind that is associated with this is, why would Al-Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam be buried in Khorasan, over 1,500 miles away from his hometown in Medina, which he was raised in, he was born in? Why was he buried somewhere so far? We know that Al-Imam Ar-Ridha was born and raised in Medina. His father was Al-Imam Al-Kadhim alayhi salam, and Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi. And his mother was As-Sayyida Najma, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayha. This was a grand woman, a woman of high maqam, a woman of high status, and she has a very unique story and a special story. And it's important to note that Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, he spent much time away from his father. His father was in and out of the prisons of the Abbasids in Baghdad, and he was in Medina. So it's obvious that his mother had to have a formidable impact on his life. And this is a very important lesson that our mothers have to draw from, that the status of the mother is important, my dear loved ones. As a mother, every action you take, every ideology you bear, your children follow after. So it's important that you are taking the right precaution to be a role model to your children. Najma, As-Sayyida Najma, she was bought by Hamid al-Musaffat. Who is Hamid al-Musaffat? Hamid al-Musaffat is the mother of Al-Imam Al-Kadhim alayhi salam, the wife of Al-Imam Al-Sadiq, and she was purchased as a servant by Habida through Al-Imam Al-Kadhim alayhi salam. And one day, Al-Imam Al-Kadhim, and it's narrated in Al-Anwar Al-Bahiyya, the book written by Sheikh Abbas Qummi, he narrates that one day Al-Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, he's sitting with his companions and he says, Wallah, I did not buy this woman, this servant, but from a revelation, a wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they tell him, how, Ya ibn Rasulullah? He says, one night while I was asleep, my father and my grandfather came to me in my dream and they told me that you will marry this woman. They had a cloth, it had an image of this woman, Sayyidah Najma, and they told me she will bear for you a great progeny, and when you have this son, you will name him Ali, and this son will emit justice. Justice will come on his hands. He will have a great akhlaq and characteristic. Indeed, Al-Imam al-Kadhim, one day he is speaking to his companion Abu Zakaria. He tells him, Abu Zakaria, have you heard of anyone that has come from Al-Maghrib? Al-Maghrib was the furthest western part of northern Africa, northwest Africa, which today constitutes Algeria, Tunis, Morocco, and part of the Western Sahara. Abu Zakaria says, no, Ya ibn Rasulullah. He says, I have been made aware that there is a man from the Maghrib who has come and we must go and visit him. So Abu Zakaria says, Al-Imam al-Kadhim, he rides on his horse and they follow Al-Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, and indeed they get to a place where this man is there and there are a group of servants and slaves there. Al-Imam al-Kadhim says, what are these? He says, these are slaves. And he sees them one by one, there are 9 of them. He says that these are not what the person I am looking for. So do you have other servants or slaves with you in your caravan? He says, no. Al-Imam al-Kadhim insists. He says, do you have anyone else in this caravan? Again, he says no. The Imam insists. He says, I have one more female servant, but she is bedridden. She is sick. She is no use for you. She cannot work. She cannot toil. He says, I want to see her. So the man refuses. Al-Imam al-Kadhim leaves with his companions. He sends Abu Zakaria with an amount of money. He tells him, go and purchase that ill woman. For I do not need her to work for me or to toil for me. There is a purpose, a great purpose for this woman. This woman has a high status. So he goes back and he tells this man, I have been sent to purchase that woman from you. He says, I agree. He agrees. They agree on a price. And as he is about to give him a Sayyidah Najma, he tells him, look, this woman has a story. She's special. When I was one day out and about, a woman from Ahl al-Kitab, she approached me and she asked me, who is this woman with you? I said, this is a woman I have purchased, a servant of mine. And she says, how could you have this servant? This woman is not to be with the likes of yourself. This woman has a great maqam, a great status. And not only that, she is meant to be with the greatest who walks this earth at that time, Al-Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. And she will not be with him for long, but she will bear for him a child. And this child will carry the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from east to west. Who was that child? Ali ibn Musa Ar-Ridha alayhi salam. And this, my dear loved ones, this incites a message to us to learn from. That Al-Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, he did not care about race, about ethnicity, about background when he was looking for his spouse. He cared about Iman and he cared about the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't ask which family does she come from, where is she from, how does she look? No. And this is a very important lesson for us to learn, my dear loved ones. When we are choosing a spouse, the most important thing for us to look for is akhlaq, is iman. Inna akramakum indallah atqakum. Ahsant. The most pious is the most loved by Allah, not the most rich, not the most wealthy, not the most Arab, not the most Iranian, not the most Indian. Akramakum indallah atqakum. And this is a message that still remains. We have some individuals that will tell their children, you must marry a specific criteria, and that criteria has to have a cultural imprint on it, an ethnicity on it. This is wrong. We have to look for iman. First and foremost, iman. Everything else is secondary, my loved ones. And on the topic, my dear loved ones, of parenthood, of choosing a spouse, a very incredible riwayah comes to mind. A riwayah which was relayed by a Shaykh al-Saduq in the book Uyun Akhbar Ar-Ridha. This is a 2-volume book. It's a very important book that gives us a complete story about the life of our Imam, Al-Imam Ali ibn Musa Ar-Ridha alayhi salam. In this riwayah, an encounter between a scholar, a scholar by the name of Ibn Salit al-Zaydi. Ibn Salit al-Zaydi. And this man was a scholar that was the companion of Al-Imam al-Sadiq, and more closely a companion of Al-Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. He says, I was on my way to perform Umrah, so on the way to Mecca, and I saw Al-Imam al-Sadiq on the way. And I asked Al-Imam al-Sadiq, where will you have your camp? Where are you going to rest for the night? And he pointed to a location. He said, I will rest here. And I decided to strike my camp there with him. And he says, I told the Imam, I asked the Imam, I made a statement to the Imam, I said that you are the purified Imams. You are the purified Imams, but death evades no one. Meaning, you will also die, you will also perish. So teach me, for I will also die. Teach me something that I can give to my children as an heirloom. I can pass to them so that they will never be led astray from the sirat. Al-Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he tells him, you see, these are my sons. And he points to a group of his sons. And he says, وَهَذَا سَيِّدَهُمْ, and this is their master. And he points to Al-Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. He says, within him is high akhlaq, within him is ilm, within him is knowledge, within him is piety, within him is generosity. And he continues to go on about his characteristics. He says, within him are the answers to the questions that divide this ummah. The questions that divide this ummah, he has the answers to them. He is Bab min Abwab Allah. He is one of the doors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ask your hajat. That is why Imam al-Kadhim is called Bab al-Hawaj. And among these characteristics, there is a characteristic within him that is greater than all of them. What is that? Ibn Rasulullah, of his progeny, Allah will derive of his progeny the ghawth and the ghiyath of this ummah. The solace, the solitude, the peace, the tranquility, the savior of this ummah. And he begins to describe the akhlaq of his son. Who is that son? Ali ibn Musa Ar-Ridha, Al-Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam. And he says, if you want to give an heirloom to your children, for them to not be led astray from that sirat, follow Al-Imam Al-Kadhim, follow Al-Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam. The path to the sirat is Muhammad and Al Muhammad, my dear loved ones. And we have to understand that this man could have asked anything from the Imam. He could have said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, teach me a dua that will allow me to be wealthy for the rest of my life. And the Imam would have taught him this. The Imam had the ilm of the Mursaleen, of the Anbiya. Teach me a dua that allows me to have my children to be emperors, to be individuals with high status. But he asks something specific. Teach me something that will allow them to stay steadfast on the sirat. I was reading a research study that was done by Pew Research about parenting in the United States, and it was very interesting to me. This research study indicated that 88% of parents in the United States find it extremely important and are extremely concerned for their children's economic well-being and for them to find a job and career that makes them happy and for them to be financially independent in adulthood. Obviously, this is not shocking. This is not something that should stand out to us. In fact, it's something great. Many of us are immigrants. Many came to this nation with very little. They worked hard to have a better life for their children to go to the best schools, the best universities, get the best education, get the best job. Everyone wants their child to be successful. That's not what stood out to me. In fact, we need to encourage our youth to be successful, to work hard, because every single one of them has the ability to be a hero in their community, to be a giant in their community. That's not what stood out to me. What stood out to me was the fact that only 17% of parents found it important for their children to adhere to the same religious teachings that they have as adults. And if this is not a tragedy, then what is a tragedy, my dear loved ones? That almost 9 out of 10 parents want the best for their children in terms of economic strength, educational strength, but only almost 2 out of 10 care about their faith, care about their religion. Imagine your son or daughter goes to Harvard and gets not 1 but 2 degrees from Harvard, then gets the best job and makes the best income, and then comes to you and tells you, "Wal-'ayadhu billah, I have problems with my religion. I have questions about my faith. I don't believe in God." What would you do at that point? How would you feel, my dear loved ones? We have to take heedance and understand that when this man asks Al-Imam Al-Sadiq for something, he is asking him, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He is asking him something greater than wealth, than education, than status. The wilayah of Muhammad and Al Muhammad is the truth in our life. It is the greatest blessing, the greatest ni'mah in our life. That is what we need to hold high, my dear loved ones. And that's not to take away from the fact that we encourage our youth and our children to work hard. No. But at the same time, make sure that religion is a priority, is a number 1 priority, my dear loved ones. Now, this is not our subject, and I do not want to take too much time to talk about that, but it is something that's very important for us to discuss. Now, we have to go back to our discussion of why Al-Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam accepted to be the crown prince of Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi. And for this, we have to understand who the Abbasis were. At a quick glance, who were Bani al-Abbas? You see, Bani al-Abbas, just like Bani Umayyah, they employed a policy of great aggression, of great harassment towards the Ahlul Bayt and towards the Shia. a great aggression towards the Ahlul Bayt and the Shia. Al-Mansur al-Abbasi, he had a quarrel with Bani Hashim, specifically of the lineage of Al-Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, because they were outright in their defiance to the Khilafah. And they had rebellion upon rebellion against them. And Al-Mansur was evil towards the Talibiyin, towards the Alawiyin, towards the Sadat. On one occasion, in a book called Maqatil al-Talibiyin, Maqatil al-Talibiyin, the author is Abu al-Faraj al-Isbahani. He writes a book which is over 550 pages. The contents of this book are heart-wrenching. It relays the details about the murders of all of those who are of the lineage of Abu Talib, beginning from Ja'far ibn Abu Talib all the way to the Sadat that were murdered after Bani al-Abbas. And in one instance, in one part of the book, he mentions the cruelty of Al-Mansur. He says that there was a grandson of Al-Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam by the name of Al-Dibaj al-Asfar. His nickname was Al-Dibaj al-Asfar, the yellow silk, because of his features. He looked and resembled yellow silk, they say. So he says he called this man, Al-Dibaj al-Asfar, and he told him, "Are you Al-Dibaj al-Asfar? You are one of the grandsons of Al-Hasan alayhi salam. You have a quarrel with my Khilafah?" He says, "Yes, yes, and yes." He tells him, "I will kill you in a way that I have not killed any other of the Sadat or any of the other of Bani Hashim." He tells his men, "Go and bring a mold of the pillars that are used to hold up large structures." He says, "Take this man, Ad-Dibaj, and trap him inside this mold." He then orders for them to bring cement and pour it on top of him while he's still alive. And he's buried in this pillar. That's how he was killed. This is Al-Mansur al-Abbasi. Al-Mansur, one day he's speaking to one of his companions. His companion is named Muhammad al-Iskandari. And this man was a close aide to Al-Mansur, but despite this, he also believed in the imamah of Al-Imam al-Kadhim. He was one of the Shia of Al-Imam al-Kadhim, but still was a close aide of Al-Mansur. Al-Mansur, he knew that Al-Imam al-Kadhim was a true imam, as did Bani Umayyah, of those imams of their time, and Bani al-Abbas. You see, the thing is, with those dynasties, they could not dispute the fact that the imams were imams sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their ilm, their akhlaq, their nur, even during the time of the Khilafah, the early Khilafah, when the so-called wise caliphs would have issues that they could not solve, who would they turn to other than Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam? Allahumma salli alayhi. The fact was not that they would dispute the imamah, but they usurped that leadership from them. They stole it from them. So this man, Muhammad al-Iskandari, he says, Mansur, one day he looks to me, he tells me, "Muhammad, I have murdered over 1,000 of the sons of Fatima. But my blood, my thirst for their blood is not quenched, for Musa ibn Ja'far still walks this earth." This was the Abbasids. And this was not the only example of their harshness towards the Shia, my dear loved ones. Al-Harun al-Rashid, he also was very aggressive towards the Hashemites. He even sent an army to Karbala to destroy Karbala, to raise the grave of Al-Imam al-Hussein and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas alayhim as-salam. He would chop the limbs of the Zuwar of Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhim as-salam. These were the Khulafa of Bani al-Abbas, the so-called Khulafa of Bani al-Abbas. But Ma'mun, he took a different approach, my dear loved ones. And in many riwayat, he is known as Al-Ifrit al-Mustakbir, the arrogant demon. Al-Ifrit al-Mustakbir. Why? Because Ma'mun, he took a covert approach towards the Talibiyin, towards Bani Hashim, towards the Imams, alayhimus salam, and specifically Al-Imam Ar-Ridha. Publicly, he showed a sign of affection, a sign of respect, a sign of love, a sign that they were close, and he tried on many occasions to try and bring Al-Imam Ar-Ridha close to Khilafah, to garner a relationship with him. He would try to offer him gifts, he would try to offer him posts, status, and Al-Imam Ar-Ridha continuously would refuse. So there was a conflict between them. And naturally, Al-Ma'mun, he would not be able to let this conflict go. And he had a plan. His plan was to instruct the uncle of Al-Fadl ibn Sahl, his prime minister, to go to Medina and to initially and essentially abduct Al-Imam Ar-Ridha against his will and to bring him to Khorasan and to offer him to be the crown prince after him when he reached Khorasan. You see that Ma'mun, he had three reasons of taking Al-Imam Ar-Ridha away from Medina. First and foremost, Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, he had supporters in Medina. He would teach a large audience in the Masjid of Rasulullah alayhi salatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli alayhi. At 17, he would sit and issue fatwas and ahkam, and many of our ahkam are from the time of Al-Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam. So Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, he would openly preach for the walaya of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He would only openly preach Shi'ism. He would openly preach the truth. And this came in conflict with the ideology of Bani al-Abbas. They did not subscribe to this ideology. Secondly, Ma'mun feared that Al-Imam Ar-Ridha would be able to install a dawla or a state if he wanted to in Medina. He had all of the prerequisites to do so. And finally, he wanted to take Al-Imam Ar-Ridha away from a place where he was far, where he could not watch him, where his spies could not get to him, to a place where he was much closer. He was under his surveillance. He was under his watchful eye. And he initially thought that I will take Ali ibn Musa away from Medina. He will go to a place, Khorasan, where the culture is different, the language is different, he knows no one. He is a gharib, and he will not be able to show people that he is an imam. He will not be able to attain a high level of teaching. But this was completely wrong, my dear loved ones. Al-Ma'mun, he found out very quickly that his plot would not achieve success, my dear loved ones. When he takes him to Medina, he believes that if Al-Imam Ar-Ridha would refuse, then this would offer him legitimacy of Khilafah. He would be seen as a legitimate Khilafah, as a legitimate Khalifa, because he would say that the grandson of Rasulullah, he is standing down on Khilafah and offering me the Khilafah, and that is legitimate. And his other thought process was that if the Imam accepted, then his supporters, his followers would say, look at Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha, he's just like every other king and every other Khalifa. He wants power, he wants Khilafah. The fact is that he never was offered the opportunity. Now that Ma'mun has given him the opportunity, he has taken it. And he lives in palaces and castles and so on and so forth. Al-Ifrit al-Mustakbir. He had a very evil plan for Al-Imam Ar-Ridha. But Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, despite this challenge, he succeeds. This is why he's known as Shams al-Shumus, because the harder they tried to take away that illumination, the truth, the more he would shine, my dear loved ones. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Al-Ma'mun, he eventually sends a large envoy with the uncle of Al-Fadl bin Sahl, and he sends this man to go and bring Al-Imam Al-Ridha from Medina. And there are many things that happened that prove to us that Al-Imam Al-Ridha was forced to go to Khorasan and was forced to accept to be the crown prince. He did not do this on his own accord or happily. Al-Sajistani, he says that I was in Medina when Ar-Raja ibn Abi al-Dhahhak, the uncle of Al-Fadl bin Sahl, came to Medina to take Al-Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam. He says, I was sitting in the masjid of Rasulullah and I saw Al-Imam Al-Ridha enter to bid farewell to his grandfather Rasulullah. He says, I saw him go to the tomb, to the grave of Rasulullah, bid him farewell and to begin to cry loudly. Then he left and he came back and he did the same thing. He stood at his grave and he cried loudly, and he left and he came and he did this multiple times. And to me, this was very dumbfounding. It left me dumbfounded. So he says, the Imam also told me, I went to say Salaam to him and he told me that please leave me, for I am being taken against my will and I will be killed alone and I will be buried next to Harun. And he tells him very clearly of the plan of Ma'mun. So immediately the plan of Ma'mun is shown to everyone. It's become clear. And Sajistani says, not only that, the Imam told me that he brought all of his children and he ordered them to cry upon him, to cry for him. Let me ask you, my dear loved ones, if your boss at work calls you right now and tells you, I'd like to promote you to be the CEO in a year after me, you are going to be ecstatic, right? You're going to be happy. You're going to have a large gathering with your family, your friends. You're not going to ask your children to cry upon you. Not only that, he says, Al-Imam Al-Ridha, he stood before his children. He distributed 12,000 golden dinars, which is a very large sum. And he told them, I bid you farewell, for I will never return to you. He made it very clear that he was not coming back from Khorasan. When this man congratulated him, he told him, don't congratulate me. For what you think will happen will not happen. And not only that, my dear loved ones, Al-Imam Al-Ridha, when he is abducted and taken against his will, the men that come to him, they tell him that you will either abide, you will either obey, or we will murder you here. Al-Imam Al-Ridha says, I have been ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not allow them to murder me. I have to allow this Risala to continue. When he is taken, on the way to Khorasan, there are many miracles that occur, my dear loved ones. And these are not only miracles that show the grand maqam of Al-Imam Al-Ridha, but miracles, my dear loved ones, that show how the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enact and partake in civil service in a community, and how they garner a community, and how they raise a community, and how those who engage in fasad, in corruption, tyrants, how they rule. There is a big difference, my dear loved ones. Shaykh al-Saduq, he narrates that Al-Imam Al-Ridha, on the way to Khorasan, he lands first in Naysabur. And in Naysabur, there was a bathhouse by the name of Al-Parwini, the bathhouse of Al-Parwini. This is a Farsi word. So he was informed that this place, the natural spring within it ran dry. There was almost no more water and it was abandoned. So he stood beside this bathhouse and miraculously the spring began to flow again. He instructs people to come and install a pair of stairs, to construct stairs, to be able to go down and perform ghusl in this bath, because the bath would be constructed below the main level of the ground. It would be a basement level, right? As many of the old bathhouses were. He goes down, he performs ghusl, then he comes back. He stands on the top of that bathhouse on the ground level and he performs salah, he performs dua. Al-Shaykh al-Saduq says, so many of the people of Naysabur began to flock to this bathhouse, to follow in his footsteps, to go and perform ghusl, and to go and stand and offer dua and supplication and pray at that place. Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, he led by example. He created a beautiful sunnah. Al-nadafatu min al-iman, being clean before praying, before worship. This was one of the things that happened. And this happened, my dear loved ones, because Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, during his debates with the scholars of the Muslims and the non-Muslims, he would debate them with his intellect. But for the layman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send miracles to prove that in fact he is an imam. There was a riwayah by At-Tabari, and At-Tabari is not a Shia scholar. At-Tabari states that Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, he stayed at a place called Dar Pasandida. Dar Pasandida was the place that he stayed in Naysabur. And where he was there, he planted an almond seed. Outside of the home, he planted an almond seed. And I want you to think to yourselves, Al-Imam Ar-Ridha knows he's not going to stay long in Naysabur, but he wants to send a message to all that if you are on the path of haqq, if you are on the path of justice, even if it's your final day, you plant that seed. You benefit the community that you're in, even if you're there for a couple days, for a couple hours. And not only that, my dear loved ones, not only that, Al-Hakim al-Naysaburi, he states that after this almond was planted, Al-Hakim al-Naysaburi is also not Shia. He states that this almond, after it was planted, it grew into a beautiful tree. And people that were ill, that were sick, would come and eat from the fruit of this tree, and they would have shifa. It became a miraculous tree. Al-Imam Ar-Ridha knew of this. He knew that he wanted to leave a good impact on that society. In Ayah 34 of Surah An-Naml, my dear loved ones, the Queen of Sheba, Bilqis, she speaks to her chiefs, her aides, and she tells them that when kings enter a society, they enter a place, they make the individuals in that society, they strip them of their dignity, and they engage in fasad. And we see this is true even today, my dear loved ones. Look at the aggression that is happening in Gaza. Is this for any other reason than fasad, than greed, than wanting the accumulation of funds, even if it means that innocent individuals must die? Look at what happens to the Hazara in Afghanistan. I was with a group of scholars from Afghanistan a couple days ago, and they told me that there is not a single Hazara neighborhood in Afghanistan that there is not an armed person who stands outside that neighborhood and makes sure that they cannot engage in their religious freedoms as the lovers of the Ahlul Bayt. At one point it was very lucrative and very beneficial to liberate Afghanistan, and at a single moment, they were dumped. This is fasad, my dear loved ones. But the awliya of Allah, when they go to a community, they give, they don't take. They produce, they don't strip away from people. And this is how you know Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, in fact, is truly one of the awliya of Allah. This is why there was no dispute that he was an imam, my dear loved ones. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ma'mun, he argues to Al-Imam Ar-Ridha when he reaches Khorasan, he tells him, you must accept to be the crown prince. He tells him, your situation is the same situation that your grandfather Ali ibn Abi Talib was when he was part of that shura that Umar had instilled, where he was part of the 6 individuals in that shura. And Umar ibn al-Khattab had stated that if you leave this shura, anyone leaves this shura, what would happen? They would be killed. And you're in the same situation. If you do not accept this position to be the crown prince, I will kill you. So there is no way out of it. Al-Imam Ar-Ridha tells him, I will accept on 3 conditions. First and foremost, I will not issue any fatwas, because he knows Al-Ma'mun will go tomorrow and tell him, issue this fatwa, issue that fatwa, do this. As many of the scholars at that time were under Abbasid payroll. And you see that many of the riwayat and hadiths at that time in other schools of thought, there was a great push of re-scribing a hadith from the Prophet. Many of these scribes were under the direct payroll of the Abbasis. Go and look into that history, my dear loved ones. The Imam said, I will not issue any fatwa. Secondly, I will not appoint or fire anyone in your government. Thirdly, I will not enter any civil or any court cases. My rule is a symbolic rule. If that's how you want it to be, that's all it will be. I will not partake in any governance, in any part of your government. And my dear loved ones, Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi, he continued his pressure towards the Imam. In many occasions, he would try and belittle him. He would try and lower his status, covertly, secretively. One of those instances, my dear loved ones, Al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi, he devised one of the world's largest conferences for interfaith debates. And truly, scholars, they say that until today there has not been an interfaith debate or summit of this grand scale. Because at that time, the Abbasid Khilafah was at the peak of power. They had every resource, to the point that Ma'mun, he brought the Pope of the Catholics, the head of the Jews, he brought the head of the Sabians, the head of the Zoroastrians, the head of the atheists, the head of the philosophers. He gathered tens and tens of the world's top minds in Islam and in non-Islam. And this debate specifically was for the non-Muslims, the summit, an interfaith debate. And he hoped that one of those scholars would stump Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha and show that this man is not an imam. There are so many of these scholars, eventually one of them is going to have an argument over him. So he went to the greatest lengths to devise this conference, not for the pleasure of Allah. One of the companions of Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, he tells him, Ma'mun has a very deceptive plan here. He wants you to engage in their arguments. And how are you going to debate someone that doesn't believe in the Quran, that doesn't believe in the Prophet, that doesn't believe in God even? He says, my dear companion, how would it be if I debate the Christian with the Injil, and the Jew with the Torah, and I engage with the atheist in science, and with the philosopher in philosophy, and I'm able to prove the existence of Allah, prove the asmat of the Anbiya, prove the prophethood of Muhammad. Allahumma salli. And indeed, the debate is very long. We don't have time to speak about the entirety of it, but something that's very interesting to mention when he debates the Pope of the Catholics. The Pope, he tells him, do you believe in Jesus? He says, yes, indeed, Muslims, we believe in Jesus. We believe that he was the son of Mary. We believe in his message. We believe in everything that Jesus taught and believed in. But we differ with you in specific things, one of which is the amount of his salah and his siyam, how much he prayed and he fasted. Now this was offered because the Imam had a point. The Pope said, Isa, he spent 24/7 in salah and siyam. So the Imam said, indeed he did. So who did he pray and fast to? The Pope is dumbfounded. He's silent. He then tells him, well, we worship Jesus because he had miracles. He walked on water, he resurrected the dead, he did this and that. Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, he tells him, Al-Yasa, he also walked on water. The Prophet Al-Yasa, he walked on water. And Ezekiel, he resurrected 35,000 people from death 70 years after they died. And then he begins to speak about the miracles of Musa and the Red Sea, and he begins to speak about the miracles of Ibrahim and the miracle of Yunus and the miracle of all the prophets. And he tells him, in this case, why do you not worship all of these prophets? Some of them have even more miraculous miracles than Jesus. Why do you not worship them? And at that point, the Pope, he had no other argument. And this Christian, he becomes a Muslim, my dear loved ones. He says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma salli. And it's at this point, my dear loved ones, that Al-Ma'mun, he decides that he needs to execute the Imam. After this debate, after Ma'mun has exhausted all his resources, all of his attempts to try and disprove the imamah of the Imam, he sees that there is no way to disprove him. He's Shams al-Shumus, Siraj Allah, Siraj Allah, the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Ma'mun, after the debates are over, he tells him, Yabna Rasulullah, indeed, you are the inheritor of all the knowledge of the Anbiya and the Mursaleen. And Jazakallah khair, for you have served Islam and Muslimin the best of service. And may Allah not allow me to live a day longer than you. Some people might think, wow, Al-Ma'mun is offering himself as a sacrifice to the Imam. No, this was a death threat, my dear loved ones. May Allah not prolong my life a day after you means that it's either me or you. The world is not big enough for the both of us. This is what he means. And indeed, Al-Ma'mun, he takes the decision to murder the Imam. One day, one of the companions of Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, Abu Salit Al-Harawi, please dim the light so we may read a musibah, if it's possible. One of the companions of Al-Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam, He says that I saw Al-Imam Al-Ridha going to the court of Al-Ma'mun. He told me, if you see me exit the court and my head is covered, then know that you must not speak to me. Know that my life is coming to an end. And if you see that my head is covered, if you see that my head is uncovered, then speak to me. So this companion of Al-Imam Al-Ridha alayhi salam, he's waiting at the doors of the courthouse. He's waiting to see his Mawla. He wants to see his Mawla exit safely. He wants to see that Noor of Al-Muhammad again walk out of those doors. He's waiting patiently. And the moment that he was fearful of comes. He sees that the Imam has his head covered. He sees that the Imam has his head covered and he's walking towards his home. He listens to the message of the Imam in which he tells him, if you see that my head is covered, do not speak to me, do not talk to me. He says, I saw my Mawla with his head covered. I knew this was bad news. I followed him to his home. He said, when I walked to the home, Al-Imam Al-Ridha told me, enter the home. He told me, go and close all of those doors. Go and close all of the windows. Go and close all of the entry points and the exit points. He tells him, why, Ibn Rasulullah? He tells him, I do not want any visitors to come here. He says, I go and I close all the doors and the windows, and when I come back to the room of my Mawla, I see him lying on the floor. I see him tossing and turning in the pain and agony that he was in. I tell him, Ibn Rasulullah, why is this how you are? Why are you tossing and turning? Why are you so ill and sick? He tells me that this La'een Ma'mun, he poisoned the grapes that I ate in his courthouse. And this poison is now running through my veins. I'm in deep agony and suffering. Allahu Akbar. At this point, he says, I heard a commotion in the home. I heard some movement. I heard some noises. I go to the home, I walk to the hallway, I see that there standing is a young Sayyid, a beautiful Sayyid, a Sayyid that was no older than 7 years old, wearing his imamah. He has the Noor of Muhammad in his face. He looks like Ali ibn Musa Ar-Ridha. I tell him, who are you? How did you get into this home? He tells me, has your faith in us weakened? I am your Mawla, Muhammad al-Jawad. I have come here to bury my father. I have come here to offer salah on his janazah. I have come here to wrap him in his kafan. Allahu Akbar. He says, when I saw him, I fell on his feet. I began to kiss his feet. I sent him my salam. You are my Imam, Al-Imam Al-Jawad. He says, come and see your father. See the state that he's in. He says, I take Al-Imam Al-Jawad to the room of Mawla Ridha. Al-Imam Al-Ridha, he sees his son for the first time in so long. He left him in Medina. He tells him, my son Muhammad, come to me, come close to me. He says that Al-Imam Al-Jawad, he falls on the chest of his father, Al-Imam Al-Ridha. He hugs his father kisses him. He tells him, Ya Bunay, my son, point my body towards the Qibla. Our Imam is pointed towards the Qibla. He lowers his feet, He raises his hands, he takes his shahada, he departs this earth, madluman, masmuma. He is poisoned, he is a madlum, he is a gharib. My dear loved ones, I want to tell our Mawla, oh Al-Imam Ar-Ridha, your son was there to bury you. Your son was there to put a kafan on your body. Your son was there to take your janazah. Your son was there to offer you respect. Oh Mawla, I want to ask you of your grandfather Zayn al-Abidin, who on the day of Ashura saw his father cut to pieces. Allahu Akbar. How did our Mawla al-Imam Zayn al-Abidin, how did he bury his father? When the tribe of Bani Asad comes, he tells them, Bani Asad, give me a prayer mat, give me a rug. They tell him, Mawla, why do you want a rug? He says, every time I pick up a piece of the body of my father Hussein, another piece falls on the floor. Give me a prayer mat so I may gather his body and I may bury him. Allahu Akbar. Al-Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he buries his father. Before he finishes burying his father, he goes to his Amma Zainab. He tells her, Amma Zainab, where is Ali al-Asghar? I want to place him on top of the chest of his father Hussein. Allahu Akbar. As-Sayyidah Zainab, she then offers him the side of the body of Ali al-Asghar. He goes and buries Ali al-Asghar with al-Imam al-Hussein. He comes to As-Sayyidah Zainab after he buries al-Imam al-Hussein. He comes to her, he tells her, Amma, my condolences, I have buried your brother Hussein. She tells him, you have buried Hussein. Tell me how you buried Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. He tells her, Amma Zainab, when I went to try to bury Abu al-Fadl, my uncle, his palms were on one side, his body was on another side, he was cut to pieces on top of the Alqami, on top of the Furat. And I had trouble to bury your brother Abu al-Fadl. Allahu Akbar. As-Sayyidah Zainab, at that moment, she begins to weep for Abu al-Fadl. She remembers that he was the one who brought her to Karbala, and now there is no more Abu al-Fadl. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. My dear loved ones, raise your hands in dua. Let us invoke the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 5 times with our loudest voices to ask Him our hajat. Ya Allahu, Ya Allahu, Ya Allah, Ya Allahu, Ya Allah. O Allah, we ask you to grant us our hajat in the name of our Mawla, Al-Imam Ar-Ridha alayhi salam, in the name of his ghurba, in the name of his qabr in Tus, in Khorasan. We ask you, O Allah, all those who are ill, all those who are sick, all those who are struggling with diabetes, mental illnesses, cancer, O Allah, give them complete and total shifa. O Allah, we ask you to continue this khidmah in our blood and in our life. Continue this khidmah of the Ahlul Bayt in our community, in our family. Allow our progeny and our dhurriyyah to be the khuddam of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. O Allah, we ask you to grant us the shafa'ah of our Mawla Al-Imam Ar-Ridha in this life, and his ziyarah, the shafa'ah in the next life, and his ziyarah in this life, and to the arwah of the mu'mineen and mu'minat, especially to the marhum Ayatullah Sayyid Fadl Milani, which had passed just yesterday. We offer a loud salawat and a fatiha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
حسین یا حسین یا حسین. قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے، کربلا میں قیامت کا ایک شور ہے. قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن. کوئی روتی ہے اپنے جوان لال کو، رو رہی ہے کوئی کم سخن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن. اپنے بربادیوں کو گوارا کیا، خون میں ڈوبے گلوں کا نظارہ کیا، دے دیا فاطمہ کا بھرا گلستان، یا تیرے اجڑے چمن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن
کے لیے.
جب چلے تھے مدینے سے سب ساتھ تھے، اون و جعفر تھے، اکبر تھے، عباس تھے. جا رہی ہوں مدینے تو کوئی نہیں، اب مصیبت فقط ہے بہن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا
وطن کے لیے.
کوئی چادر نہ تھی، کیسے بیداد تھی، ہاتھ ہوتے ہوئے بھی نازاد تھی. کتنے مجبور کر دی گئی تھی بہن، اپنے بھائی کے دفن و کفن کے لیے، قافلہ جا رہا ہے وطن کے لیے. یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین. مشہد میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا، مشہد میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا، مشہد میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا، مشہد میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا. مسجد اداس خانہ کعبہ ہے سوگوار، شہر مشہد میں آج فضائیں ہیں غم گسار، آتی ہیں یہ صدائیں ایران سے بار بار، مشہد میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا، مشہد میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا. فرقت میں رضا کی اداسی ہے چار سو، آنکھوں سے بہہ رہا ہے فرشتوں کے بھی لہو، جنت بھی سر کو پیٹ کے کرتی ہے گفتگو، مشہد میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا، مشہد میں اٹھ رہا ہے جنازہ علی کا، یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین. زیارت.
السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ یا نبی اللہ. السلام علیکم یا فاطمة زہرا سیدۃ النساء العالمین. السلام علیکم یا امیر المؤمنین یا علی بن ابی طالب. السلام علیکم یا حسن ابن علی المجتبی. السلام علیکم یا حسین ابن علی شہید بکربلا. السلام علیکم یا علی بن حسین زین العابدین. السلام علیکم یا محمد ابن علی الجعفر. السلام علیکم یا محمد ابن علی الصادق. السلام علیکم یا موسیٰ ابن علی الکاظم. السلام علیکم یا علی بن موسیٰ الرضا. السلام علیکم یا محمد ابن علی الجواد. السلام علیکم یا علی بن محمد الہادی. السلام علیکم یا حسن ابن علی العسکری. السلام علیکم یا صاحب الزمان. السلام علیکم یا شریک القرآن. السلام علیکم یا کعبۃ الایمان. السلام علیکم یا امام الانس والجن. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. اللہم کل ولیک الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا تمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى